welcome to Nighthawk Racing and the hashtag F1RST Championship. Firstly, I'm Sarah Hawkey. You can find myself and the rest of our drivers here on the Nighthawk Racing YouTube channel. You can also check out the entire back catalogue of seasons 1 to 3 of the F1RST series, mini-series and off-championship events, and one-off race events, all of which are highly competitive and a lot of fun. Also, please check out our Instagram and TikTok for other content and races there. Link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen for more information. But now, it's time to focus on the event at hand. Tonight you join me for round 7 of season 4 of the F1RST Nighthawk Racing Championship, and in again today's video we'll be covering the red lobby here at Trial Mountain. Before we get into tonight's race, I'm just going to give you a little bit more information about the event itself and the championship as a whole. So as you can see on screen at the moment is our calendar. We have a 10 race championship calendar going to several different tracks that GT7 has to offer. The racing itself will be divided into 2 lobbies, the red and the blue lobby. There are 2 racing events with a qualifying session, and the order of the events is the qualifying session comes up first. This sets a grid for the feature race. Next up is the sprint race, which is based on reverse average points scored, and then we go straight into the feature race, and like I said earlier, the qualifying session sets the grid for the feature race. So, up first on the racing events of the night is the sprint race. Sprint race will be 10 laps. The grid is formed via how the drivers line up in reverse average points scored across the season for a rolling start. The feature race will be 37 laps. All drivers must use 2 different compounds of tyres in this race, whilst also starting on the grid on the compound that they set their fastest lap in qualifying earlier. And as a reminder, during the lobby tonight, in the blue lobby, drivers have full driver aids such as traction control, ASM and ABS. And in the red lobby, they only have ABS enabled on the driver aids. That hardcore driving experience to really challenge our drivers. Right, so while the drivers are having fun qualifying, let's talk a little bit about Trial Mountain. So, I've not got much experience around this track, so I'm excited to see how everyone gets on. But Trial Mountain is a fictional circuit that appeared in most of the GT games except for GT Sport, and it also featured on the Gran Turismo PSP. I never got the chance to play that on PSP, but it sounds fun. I missed out on that. But it's set in the mountain area of Nevada, USA, and it features a lot of several blind corners, 3 tunnels in total, a very long uphill back straight, and a series of fast compound corners. Some players see it as one of the easiest circuits in the series. That is one of the easiest to drive and memorise. However, it is one of the hardest circuits to drive fast due to its length. And in GT7 it went and undergone a full renovation. As a result, the full length is increased to just over 5 kilometres. So like it says, obviously in GT7 the circuit length has boosted up to 5.4 kilometres, or just over 3.3 miles long. It's got 15 turns in total, and it's like that introduction said, it's a very kind of mixed track. Some drivers love it, some drivers hate it. It's kind of like Marmite, but let's see how everyone got on in qualifying, and hopefully Trial Mountain lives up to its name and provides us with some good racing.
And here we are with the sprint grid for the red lobby here at season 4 round 7 Trial Mountain. So first up, starting on pole, we have Coach, the head of Isuzu Racing, driving that Toyota Supra number 5 in his Castrol livery. He is definitely one to watch here today. And in P2 we have Charlie in that yellow and green Ford GT. He's had a little bit of bad luck with sprint races recently, but let's hope he can conquer that demon and get a good result here today. In P3 we have the returning Giles, or Giggles, Max Velocity, or however you know him, in that green RX Vision. Welcome back to the grid. In P4 we have, up from Blue Lobby, we have Koulios and his Red Lobby re-debut, shall we say, in that blue and yellow NSX. In P5, in his second Nighthawk Racing race, we have Nigel Mansnail. Love that name, and everyone should give him a follow on YouTube for his VR videos. In P6, we have Sophie in that Ferrari 458 from Inner eSports. And in P7, we have our reigning champion in that Nissan GTR, Katie the Kai. Sarah, can you take the next ones, please?
Of course I can. In P8 we have our very own Pedro in that BMW M6, one of our Nighthawk admin. In P9 we then have Wise Fodderboy in the Porsche 911, sporting a new livery this week, so watch out for him. In P10 we then have Mercedes, the super quick Porsche 911 driver with that Team Year 1 livery. In P11 we have again the return of Mac, 3 times in a row now, in that Ferrari 458, the very bright yellow one, so you'll see it from space. In P12 we then have our very own co-founder Midnight Ursu in that McLaren 650S, and starting behind them in P13 we have the Dark Lord GT, and as Midnight always said, who would he rather behind him, Genghis Khan or Louis? He'd choose Genghis Khan, so Midnight's on for a tough sprint race here. But yeah, Midnight, that is the grid. Looks like a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, honestly, there's no one on that grid I don't think is in without a shot of a podium at very least, but you have to say the Supras are looking good recently, so one at either end of the grid, so good luck to those drivers. But we have a couple of drivers up for either the reintroduction into Red Lobby or first drive in Red Lobby, so good luck particularly to Nigel and Koulios, who have joined us in Red for the first time either in a while or first time overall. But with that in mind, Sarah, I'm going to say before we get into it, anyone that you're going to be keeping a particular close eye on?
Oh, I'd definitely say the Blue Lobby graduates in Coach, Mansnail, Koulios. They've been super fast recently, so hopefully they can carry that form into their first Red Lobby race in a while, like you say. Apart from that, I'm interested to see how fast Louis can make his way through the grid, and yeah, like you say though, it could be anyone's game here. Everyone's super fast, and it's all to play for, so keep my eye on across the board. But yeah, there's a few that I'll definitely be focusing on. Yourself?
Yeah, probably the same. Keep an eye on those Blue Lobby graduates. Obviously we have Giles returning after a couple of weeks off on holiday, but yeah, keep an eye on particularly the Dark Lord, because he's leading the championship for a reason, and he's going to be wanting a big haul of points as per normal. With that in mind, let's go racing, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
And here we go for the Red Lobby Sprint. Coach leads the pack away on a rolling start. Leads Charlie, Giles, Koulios, Nigel Mansdale, Sophie, Kai and Pedro in the top 8. And here they go. That Supra will blast off down to turn 1, followed by that 4GT and Giles. 3 cars very fast in the straight line. Giles looking for the move, thinking better of it into turn 1. The rest of the pack following single file so far, and all getting through the first couple of corners, but they're going to start concertinaing up in the mid-section. We've got a couple of drivers who are on the inside. Nigel on those soft tyres, taking the inside line, trying to get the better of Koulios. I think Koulios actually going to possibly run the outside of Nigel there. But either way, is now maintaining P4, top 3, thinking of trying to streak away. Most drivers on the medium tyres here, with the exception of Nigel. Fodder down the inside, and he's been shuffled out to the outside, and he's lost a bunch of places and goes to the back of the grid. Unfortunate there, Sarah. Did you see what happened there?
Yeah, it looked like it got a little bit elbows out between a few of the drivers at the back there, and unfortunately, like you say, Fodder just being pushed out a little bit, but that does make a gap for Pedro and the Dark Lord to get through, and the Dark Lord is already on the back of Midnight, as well as McManley being on the back of Mercedes at the moment.
Giles up to P2 as well. Thank you for that insight, Sarah. It looks like all drivers up the front, giving each other the right amount of space, and all making their way through. This is a very tight and twisty track. It does occasionally lead to a little bit of bumping around here, and lots of tail-happy moves coming out of this penultimate set of corners from Giles and Charlie as they go side by side into the final corner. With also Kai on the inside, now the outside of Koulias, and I think that is a Charlie round and in the barrier.
It is, unfortunately. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Potentially a little bit of contact between a few drivers that did result in Charlie in the wall, unfortunately. But hopefully, obviously, on lap 1, he can get the race going again. But we're going side by side with Nigel and Koulias here. Koulias on the inside line into that turn 1. And Nigel gets pushed out wide. A little bit of contact with the wall. I'm not sure if he picked up any damage with that, but he does lose quite a few positions there, Midnight.
Yeah, a little bit of front right damage, but this being the sprint, he'll be off on the move again. He has become a little bit of a moving roadblock for a couple of drivers behind, and there is a bit of a gaggle of cars in here as Nigel is getting back up to speed, and Fodder gets ahead of Nigel there. But up at the front we have Sophie now taking P3 off Koulias, Kai trying to take P4 off Koulias, but with a half-second penalty, and Mercedes behind the pair of them. You know, a little bit of nudging from Mercedes, and it might, yeah, he clipped the wall but got away with it. But all drivers all close together, followed by Mac. Lots of action in this early couple of laps. It's not settling down at all. Sophie and P3 trying to streak away from these three, and we're going to have maybe four into one corner here.
Yes, we see Mercedes diving up into the inside on Koulias and Katie the Kite, and potentially Sophie as well. They all get a little bit close to each other there, and a little bit of bumping, which does lose Mercedes quite a lot of momentum and drops Sophie back a few positions. But good for Mac. Mac saw a space and went for it, and he's now in P5. But like you say, Katie the Kai is still carrying that half-second penalty in P3, and with these drivers so close behind him, he's going to drop quite a few positions here on the start from the straight Midnight.
Yeah, quite right. And it does look like Sophie lost out relatively big there from what looked like a relatively small incident. Mercedes on the inside, giving Sophie a little bit of a nudge in the mid part of the corner, and once you lose that traction you just lose a lot of time. But, well, not a lot of time, a little bit of time, but a lot of places in this case. It's unfortunate for her. Koulias and Mac have gotten past Kai thanks to that penalty. The top two are streaking away at the front. This pack, held up by Koulias at the moment, seems to be a little bit bottled up, but we do have a lot of drivers all together. Top 10 all nose to tail, third to 10th nose to tail, with the top two just disappearing at the moment.
Yeah, and a little bit of movement at the back here as well. Pedro up into P11. Nigel, obviously after that contact, he did have a little bit of a drifty moment coming out of the final few corners, as well as Fodder making a pass on Midnight as well, and Fodder already looking to make a pass back on the Dark Lord, going around the outside here, losing a little bit of momentum, but keeps it on the road, and Dark Lord is looking very eager to get past Mercedes here, as we join Koulias and Katie the Kai side by side. So all in all, Katie the Kai not losing too many places because of that half-second penalty last lap, but he's got a good line here on the inside. Obviously, that's where you want to be for this corner. He brakes slightly later. Koulias on the outside. Oh, it looked like Koulias was going to attempt the switchback, but Katie the Kai saying no, not today, Koulias. And they're still in their respective positions here, and McManley into the podium, which I'm sure he'll be very happy about, Midnight.
Yeah, I think he snuck up the inside of Koulias somewhere around turn 1, turn 2, but he's been making a move to get away from Kai and Koulias ever since. And in the pack just behind, we've got Mercedes and recovering Sophie completely together, with our championship leader Dark Lord and the new driver of Fodder, I think in his third, maybe fourth race with us now, all together. So we do have the championship leaders trying to make their way through, and Dark Lord in this one sort of struggling at the moment in time in that Supra, because there is so much action up in front. It's hard to find a bit of free tarmac on the grid at the moment.
Yeah, and it makes our job a lot harder, especially me with a cold. I may sound a little bit different, but yeah, obviously enjoying everyone being so close to each other, especially 4 laps in. Obviously, sometimes when you get into the kind of the mid range of the sprint races, everyone starts to space out a little bit, but everyone actually across the grid is relatively close to each other at the moment, as we see Koulios going on the inside of Mercedes there. Sophie looking for an opportunity to pass them as well, but unfortunately she has to wait a few corners. But Koulios dropping a few positions to P5, unfortunately, and he does lose quite a lot of momentum. He was on the back of KDVK a few laps ago.
Oh, Sophie with an ambitious move down the inside. Mercedes might be getting the cutback. And then the draft, a little bit of a push pass from Dark Lord, who's working with Mercedes to get past Sophie there. So Sophie up 1 place, down 2. It's a bit like snakes and ladders, this one, at the moment. But can the Dark Lord get it? Stuck down to P6. Fodder down the inside of the pair of them.
Oh, unfortunately, Fodder is facing the wrong way. Unfortunately, might have just caught the ball at the wrong moment there, looking for a very sneaky move up the inside. That definitely caught my attention, Midnight.
Yeah, me and you both. It's one of those 3 into 1 corner plus another. It doesn't go. I mean, it was ambitious, but we do like to see it. And he tried to make it work. The only person unfortunately harmed in that one might have been himself. But we can see it out front at the moment. Coach has disappeared, but Giles does have a McManley reeling him in that 458, and he's bringing our Season 3 champion, Katie the Kai, with him. Koulios looks like he's weathered the storm at the moment.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there. Katie the Kai also picking up another half-second penalty. And obviously, this penalty zone on Trail Mountain, it's just as you come out of that final corner, so it does lose you quite a big chunk of time, and you can see that with how much Koulios has caught him up. Obviously, not all Koulios going on the grass there, that's going to lose him a little bit of time. But yeah, the penalty zone here, it's one of those ones where you don't really want to get a penalty on this track because you know how much time loss you're going to get.
You're not wrong, you are not wrong. I'm just having a quick look around the grid as well. Looking at the tyre wear briefly, you can see the Dark Lord, even on mediums, already starting to suffer. We know he is rapid, to say the least. He is reeling in Koulios, but Koulios with much, much better tyre wear. So this might go down to lap 8 or 9, and then we might see the positions even change. So something to keep an eye on. But out front, here comes Mac on Giles for P2. Into the left-hander, deep on the brakes. Giles, give him a little bit of a squeeze. A little bit rude, a little bit of a paint swap, but got away with it. And the Dark Lord has got past Koulios in a very similar manner. But we now have Mercedes on the back of Koulios. Oh, we have a Koulios sandwich there.
Yeah, and I'm sure Koulios will be aware of that, and will try and be defensive and attacking at the same time with the 2 drivers around him. As yeah, it looked like Koulios got a little bit sideways there, but yeah, obviously going back to the McManley move, what a move that was. Obviously Giles trying to be as defensive as he can, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to hold McManley back. As we see Mercedes going onto the inside line of Koulios here. Koulios not really, I don't think he's really liking this track at the moment, Midnight, as he's obviously back in another sandwich, but this time Mercedes and Sophie.
Yeah, I mean, once you're off your rhythm round here as well, and that NSX isn't the quickest thing in a straight line, it's very, very difficult. He does, I'm not sure if he bumped Mercedes there or got out of the throttle completely, but Sophie making the place and the pass done, and that does see Sophie up to P7, Koulios down to P8. So Koulios off the rhythm at the moment. You can see him lighting up the tyres again.
That looked like a potential kind of Koulios knew that Sophie was on the inside line, and maybe just wanted to survive the corner, or wasn't 100% confident about going side by side with Sophie around that first couple of corners. So it did look like he moved out of the way for Sophie, but not quite sure. We'll see obviously what he does next up around that corner. But currently he's got Midnight right behind him, giving a little bump, trying to catch that little group in front of them. And it's one of those tracks where you can bump draft your competitors to get closer to the drivers in front, which is handy. And as we can see, Midnight going to the inside line now, going for that move on Koulios. Koulios knows that the move is about to happen and lets Midnight through. But yeah, Koulios, I don't think the NSX is treating him well around this track. He seems to be struggling a little bit. As I say, that's Sophie drifting around that corner there. But we may have a potential move with Katie Leclerc and Giles, obviously both having a half-second penalty. So the big winner here might be Dark Lord Midnight.
You might well be right. And so Dark Lord, never short of any pace, but definitely struggling on tyre wear, and he's going to make full advantage. As you can see, Giles, where he's taken a defensive line, is just holding Kai up tremendously. Dark Lord catching about a second or so in the final couple of corners, and then there you go, with a double half-second penalty. There goes Dark Lord, there goes Mercedes, and then you get Giles and Kai down 2 places instantly, followed by maybe another one with Sophie on the back of Kai as well.
It was quite interesting to see Mercedes there. He was kind of dodging all of, obviously, Katie Leclerc and Giles that had to burn those penalties. As Giles goes for a very, very late braking move on the Dark Lord, and Sophie as well going for a move on Dark Lord. Not something we see very often, because when we see Dark Lord kind of get onto the podium, he rarely lets that car off of the podium. So maybe struggling with the track a little bit as he gets a little bit elbows out with Sophie and Giles here. But it does make the move done. Giles, unfortunately spinning round and is caught by the traffic of Midnight and Koulios. So unfortunate for Giles there. Not what you want to see, but that does drop him out of contention. But going back to the Dark Lord, he's resumed in that P5 position. That was a bit of a drama lap, wasn't it? Everything was going on there, Midnight.
Yeah, it was a case. I think that's a case of 6 drivers into one corner. Doesn't go. As simple as that. You did see Giles giving Sophie a bit of a squeeze, but maybe Sophie being a bit opportunistic. But at the end of the day, it very much was 3 cars over the same bit of track, once you factor in Dark Lord as well. Now Pedro has also joined this fight as well, and Giles coming off the worst in that one. He won't be tremendously happy about that, but it's always fun racing when we see all these lot get together. But at very least, we're seeing a bit of a quiet drive so far from Pedro. I've seen him have one Larry moment on a couple of laps here where the back end stepped out completely, but otherwise, you know, being calm, being cool, collected, and so far it is working for him. He's on the back of Sophie and Dark Lord, who is definitely struggling with those tyres. So you have to see that he's only got 1/3 of tyre left, as on that front right.
Koulios.
What have you spotted?
Koulios having a bit of a movement coming out of the final corner, which did send him in a little bit of a spin and drops him to P12.
He won't be enjoying that one, but we do have Nigel at the back who's pitted for some more soft tyres, so maybe he's going to go for the fastest lap today. Those original soft tyres not working out for him. We've got Giles in the back of Charlie as well, Fodder joining that fight. So the fight's all the way around the track at the moment. For P1, we still have Coach in a reasonably comfortable lead, Matt closing in slowly, and then Mercedes and Kai for P3, Dark Lord and Sophie for P5, and well, all of the others fighting over every other place. This is a bit mental, actually.
Yeah, it's great to see obviously how close all the drivers are, and just goes to show how fast they are. As you say, Pedro obviously coming into that BMW M6 round here with a little bit more confidence. I don't know if you agree with that, Midnight. He seems to be kind of, driving that car really well today. It might be, track specific, or car, the car suits his track quite nicely, as Pedro makes a very nice move around the outside of Sophie there into that kind of wide hairpin. And yeah, good to see Pedro having a better week. Obviously the last tracks that we've been to haven't been the best for that BMW M6, I would know. But yeah, good to see him doing so well this week. Currently, as we go to lap number 8, nearly on to lap number 9, I've got to say, Coach having a great race, Midnight. He just, once he got in that lead, and he's just going to stay there, and with the pace of that Supra, no one's been able to really catch him up just yet.
I would entirely agree. Mac doing his best to do exactly that, but the pair of them, in Mac's case, he's got through the traffic. He has stayed in roughly the same sort of gap. Coach managing this race at the moment. Kai has got up to P3, past Mercedes, involved in all that last couple of lap kerfuffle. But yeah, Coach driving a blinder so far.
And that's obviously not to say that everyone else hasn't been driving a blinder as well. Obviously, Charlie going a little bit wide there as he enters the tunnel. But this track is it's kind of like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. And so far, looks like most of the drivers seeming to enjoy it, which is obviously good. As Charlie goes for a move on the inside of Giles there. Giles trying to return the favour by going on the inside of this corner there. He gets it done just before the apex and before the tunnel, which was a good move, and good to see these two battling for P9. But that has brought back Fodder, who's looking to make up a couple of positions after that kind of contact with the wall earlier on in the race, as Giles goes all the way to the left. Fodder tries to follow to pick up some slipstream, and I think obviously this corner coming up is crucial for making a move, because some of the other twisty turny parts of the track, it's not very easy to make a move Midnight.
Yeah, quite right. I mean, they're aiming for this big braking spot, which is very difficult to see with all the shadows you've got around this track. The big braking spot down the back straight into that tight left-hander. And as we've seen so far, 2 or 3 cars side by side, Fodder may have got it a bit wrong there. Was that a bit of an oversteering moment, or was that contact, Sarah?
I think it was a little bit of contact, but a little bit of kind of oversteer, or the Porsche sending him into a little bit of a drift there, which unfortunately obviously did lose him quite a bit of momentum there. But obviously we've still got the feature race to go, so keep your head up, Fodder. I'm sure obviously we know how quick Fodder is. He seems to be setting quite a few poles, so obviously we'll see if he can do the same for the feature race round here, as we see Sophie diving onto the inside line of Pedro here into turn 1. Breaks a lot later, making Pedro concede that position to Sophie, and having a little bit of a wobble, or Pedro manages to catch it, but Midnight obviously right behind. We'll see what Pedro just did there, and maybe try and make a move in the next couple of corners, as we see Sophie with that move picking up a half-second penalty. So all of that might have been for nothing. If Pedro and Midnight can keep with her, she may lose a couple of positions come the end of this lap, Midnight.
It's entirely possible that half-second penalty will be served right before the end of the lap, but we have to say, out front, Coach looking supreme. Mac doing his best to chase him down. He's not going to have enough time. Kai has gotten into P3, and with the better tyre wear, it looks like he's holding off Mercedes. P5, Dark Lord, despite a near flat front right after 10 laps of medium tyres, and he will make it home. Sophie, yeah, that's what the key is right now between Sophie and Pedro particularly, because that will be a loss of about a second, but she's going to be a little bit lucky because that penalty line is going to be right before the start-finish checkered line, so she might just about get away with this. But just a bit further back, Giles and Charlie still fighting for the recovering. Kudos with a near flat rear right, and Nigel unfortunately not having the best of races in this one after that pit stop, but he will come back stronger in the feature. But Sarah, Coach, he's been supreme on this one, hasn't he?
He has. What a commanding lead he's had in this sprint race, and I'm sure obviously that will definitely boost his confidence going into the feature race. He knows he's got a lot of pace around here as he crosses the finish line in P1. What a race from him. Mac P2, Dark Lord in P3, Mercedes just behind in P4, and then Dark Lord in P5, followed by Sophie managing to hold that P6, Pedro in P7, Midnight P8, Giles in P9 holding off Charlie for P10, and then Fodder coming across the line in P11, followed by Kulios, and then joining Nigel, which is coming around the final few corners for P13. But that was quite an interesting race there, Midnight. Obviously very fast paced. Everyone was really close to each other for the majority of the race, which obviously made our job a lot harder to try and keep on top of everything. And but yeah, another great race, another race filled with action, and obviously some mistakes from a few drivers, which I'm sure they want to iron out before the feature race.
Quite right, quite right. And yeah, Coach, brilliant drive from him. Matt, great drive through the pack there. Kai using some of his ultra instinct to get through the pack as well, and getting a good podium there. Those three driving exceptionally. Mercedes involved in the wars in that one, has to be said. Dark Lord holding on to P5. He's going to be having an interesting one for the feature with that tyre wear, but for his championship aspirations, he's getting the points and ahead of most of his rivals today. But what can we say? Sophie also involved in the wars, and Pedro getting a really decent haul of points there today as well. But yes, that was a tricky one for all of the drivers. Lots of kerfuffles, we'll call it that. Something that stewards may have an eye on for a couple of those. But at the end of the day, I think that was an interesting sprint race. But that leads us on to the qualifying and the feature race. I'm looking forward to this one, Sarah.
Yeah, so am I. I'm interested to see where everyone qualifies, and I think obviously, kind of like Monaco in the F1, I think starting position will really kind of be beneficial for the drivers. So let's go see how they got on.
Quite right. Let's do that. And here we are with the qualifying results for the feature race here in Red Lobby. So first off, we have Wise Fodderboy on medium tyres, taking pole position on a 1 minute 50.168. That is nothing but ominous for the race. In P2 on the soft tyres, but it may be part of his strategy, Mercedes with a 1 minute 50.369. In P3, the ever-present The Dark Lord on a 1 minute 50.750. And in a very respectable P4, Pedro on a 1 minute 50.807, also on medium tyres. Katie Dekai takes 5th in that GTR, 1 at 51.048, also very respectable, top 5. And the return of the Mac in P6 on a 1 minute 51.116, both drivers also on mediums.
And following on from Mac, we then have Koulios in P7 with a 151.242. He set that time on the soft set of tyres, so looking for a fast getaway off the line. In P8, we then have Sophie with a 151.322, setting her times on the medium tyres. In P9, we have Coach with a 151.369, and he also set his time on the mediums. Charlie in P10 in that 4GT, setting a time of a 151.579. And behind him in P11 we have Nigel Mansell in that Ferrari 458, setting a time of a 151.618, setting his time on the soft, so again looking for a quick start off the line. In P12 we have Midnight ISO with a 151.864, and rounding off the grid we have Giles, or Giggles, however you may know him, in that RX Vision with a time of 152.577, setting his time on the mediums. But yeah, that is everyone's qualifying time midnight. Got some fast laps, I see.
Yes, completely. So some of us feel a bit outclassed seeing that lap from Fodder on the mediums there. I have to say, so I think the race is still completely open, particularly for all of the podium spots. But it's going to be keep an eye on those Supras, and they're not handling it very well with the tyre wear around here, but they're still devastatingly fast when they switch on the tyres and get around the track. So keep an eye out for them. But it does look like the Porsche lads having a good one out front today.
Yeah, those Porsches will definitely be a couple to look out for, especially like say Ford and Mercedes. Seems to be the track where the Porsches are quite dominant, which I'm not complaining. You know, it's my favourite car, so I'm excited to see how everyone gets on.
Well, I'm complaining because I like McLaren to be good, but never mind, that's another problem altogether. But keep an eye out for those Blue Lobby graduates like Coach and Koulios and Nigel Mansell as well. So keep an eye out for those lads. So see what can happen here today. With that in mind, Sarah, I think it's race time.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited for this one. Right, so on the grid, the cars are revving and roaring and ready to go. 5 lights are just about to set off, and away everyone goes. And we have a very good start from Koulios and McManley there in that Ferrari 458. Known for its good starts, into the first corner we go, and it seems that we've got a three-way battle into that first corner. And unfortunately, Giles and Coach do come together, which does send Coach spinning into the wall and probably picking up quite a bit of damage there. Very unfortunate. It looked like Giles unfortunately just, I don't know, maybe misjudged his braking point there, and unfortunately Coach having, let's not say the best start to the feature race possible. But apart from that, Koulios getting a little bit elbows out with Katie Dekai there, and as well as McManley into third place already, with Mercedes and Fodder just behind. So we've got the 911s in P1 and P2, and Fodder obviously capitalising from starting on poles. Got quite a big gap on Mercedes so far. But anything that's caught your eye so far? Midnight?
No, just that incident into turn 1. That's the unfortunate thing for Coach, who has retired. But it is one of those things that it does happen at this track. We have a lot of corners, which as soon as you have any contact, you are in the barrier. So unlucky for Coach on that one, but ending his drive early. And Charlie up to P11 on that one, getting the pass done into that long left-hander. We've got Kudos and Kai together again. After the sprint, they were just glued to each other for a few laps back there. But you're right, Fodder out front this time rather than involved in the traffic. He's making the most of it, those two 911s trying to race away. But Fodder on the mediums, that cracking lap in qualifying from him, chased by Mercedes on the softs. But you can see that extra grip that Mercedes has that open early doors on the colder tyres. But Mac P3 looking good at the moment, followed by the Dart Lord P4 and Sophie P5. Oh, Kudos having a little bit of squirm coming out of that right-hander. I was just looking for Kai. It seems to have fallen back a little bit. Is he warming his tyres?
Potentially. He did have a little bit of a moment in that final few corners, which did allow Pedro through and allowed Nigel to catch up quite a bit. Not sure if he was warming his tyres or just felt a little bit of loss of grip. As we see a little bit of rubbing from Sophie Dark Lord there, which nearly did send Sophie into a half spin there, but she gets a position on the Dark Lord into P4, right behind her fellow Ferrari 458 driver in McManley, who's currently sat in P3. But like I say, the two Porsches still very close to each other. Obviously Mercedes on the softer set of tyres, so he'll have the pace advantage slightly over Fodder. But like I say, Fodder being very, very quick on that one lap pace in qualifying, as we see Charlie potentially go for a move on Midnight again. Obviously Midnight overtaking Charlie for that P11 spot, but will he stay there? We shall see as we get to the end of this very long straight and into that braking zone. And as I say that, Mercedes trying to go around the outside of Fodder here, not being able to do it that time, but he's got he's got his eyes on that first place, and let's see how long it takes Mercedes to make that move on Fodder as they get very close to each other again through this last sector here. But looking just behind, we have the Ferrari still very close to each other, but behind them we have Koulias and the Dark Lord. And overseeing all this action, we have Pedro and Nigel. But it looks like we've got quite a lot of battles going on. Obviously, lap 2 of the feature race. This is where it all kicks off. Everyone wants to get in their battles and get in the highest position possible before any pit stops take place. But the Katie Closeway dropping a few more positions since last time we caught up with him, into P10 now, just behind Giles. So I'm not quite sure what happened to him there, Midnight.
I think he just lost a bit of rhythm once he had the mild incident when we saw him weaving down the straight, possibly warming or cleaning his tyres. He just got swallowed by the pack, and Nigel managed to jump him. Whoa, Koulias having another interesting move there. Good save, actually. But Dark Lord gathering that place up, he'd be very enjoying that one. Yeah, Kai just falling through the pack once Nigel got past him, and he just kind of got swallowed by the pack a little bit. But that's what happens here. As soon as you're off that rhythm, off the racing line, you can drop places so quickly, particularly with this pack as tight as it is. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers all in the same 2 corners, one after the other, just on one shot. So yeah, all the pack very close together still, except for the 2 Porsche drivers out front making a dart for it. But I have to say, Fodder looking great at the moment. Mercedes, despite being on the softer tyre, hasn't made his way through yet. But he could just be saving a little bit of fuel, thinking longer term. Mercedes might know his race isn't with Fodder today. But I have to say, there's a couple of drivers out there on the soft tyres. One was Mercedes, another one is Nigel, and both of them will be hitting a little bit earlier, and the other one obviously was Koulias as well. So a little bit of mix for strategy, soft tyres in amongst the mediums today as well.
Yeah, and obviously, as we know, the soft tyre runners will be thinking short term, trying to make up as many positions as they can before they have to do their strategy and come into the pits for fuel and tyres. Obviously they've got a lot less laps to make those moves done compared to the medium runners, and that's obviously something you've got to factor in with qualifying as well. Obviously, do you qualify on the softer tyres? Do you qualify on the mediums, which obviously bring you just that a little bit further into the race, so you can kind of really settle in before you have to come in and do any sort of strategy. But like you say, obviously sometimes the soft tyres, you just want to start on them because you know they're going to be the quicker tyre. As we see Kulos going very wide there, which nearly left a gap just big enough for that BMW M6 of Pedro, but unfortunately not able to capitalise it on this lap. But yeah, obviously, like I was saying about the tyres, obviously it's very mixed, you know, with the soft and the mediums. It's really all depending on how long you want to go into the race before you have to pit. As I saw Mercedes having a little bit of contact with the rocks there before the tunnel. Obviously that does lose him quite a bit of time to fodder out in front. But
damage
and picks up damage. It did look like a very hefty hit into the rocks there, so very unfortunate for Mercedes there, which obviously will affect his top end speed here. As we see Pedro going for the move on Koulias here, a very late kind of just before the braking zone into this very wide hairpin. Pedro wanting to get that move done and dusted before any sort of braking zone. But just behind we have a little bit of a battle with Nigel and Katie the Kai. Katie the Kai trying to a bit of collision between Pedro into a half spin that looked like Koulias accident. Well, I'm not sure. Obviously, Koulias looked like he had quite a bit of contact with Pedro there, and unfortunately, that does lose Pedro and Koulias a bit of time. And is that a potential?
Yeah.
I think we've lost Koulias from the grid, Midnight.
Yeah, that's a retirement, and unfortunately, that will be a penalty for the next race for him as well at the next round at Road Atlanta for not following procedure. But never mind, that unfortunately has really affected Pedro. It's dropped him down the back of the grid. It's going to really screw with his strategy because he's nowhere near a pit window at the moment. So unfortunate for Pedro there, but that has gifted a few places to Kai, to Nigel, Charlie and Giles in particularly. So we can expect to see Pedro go for, I would imagine, hard tyres on a really, really long double stint on hard tyres from here to the end perhaps. But you can see out front, Fodder now making a big of a gap after Mercedes made that contact with the wall this time last lap, and that damage is going to bring him into the clutches of Mercedes and of McManley and Sophie and even Dark Lord. So you start to see Mercedes perhaps going a bit backwards now at this point. But Sarah, Koulias and Pedro, that's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate, and like you say, obviously affecting Pedro's race as well. Obviously having to pit probably, you know, a lot shorter than what he wanted to on those medium set of tyres. Obviously only 4 laps in he was able to get this medium tyre. As we see, Midnight and Giles coming together a little bit into that braking zone. Maybe Midnight not not confident of where Giles was braking, and unfortunately just giving a little tap to his rear bumper. But it's good to see these two battling, and I'm sure Midnight will be eager to try and get past Giles here. But yeah, going back to the whole Pedro and Koulias situation, obviously that does put Pedro in a very kind of difficult position. He had a really, really good qualifying session, and unfortunately, obviously, that's just all undone with that incident with Koulias. But I think obviously Koulias will hopefully, apologise to Pedro, and they can shake hands before the next race. These things happen, unfortunately, and I think we could tell with that sprint race that Koulias, wasn't 100% confident around this track this week. Maybe obviously, that first couple of corners with the undulation changes just didn't really suit that NSX. So hopefully the next track, Road Atlanta, will play into a little bit more of Koulias's hands there.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. I have noticed, I can't remember actually if it was from the opening lap or not, but Nigel carrying a bit of damage as well. But knowing he's on the soft tyres, he's sticking with it. But I have to agree with you, unfortunate for Pedro, particularly after starting so high. But there's still a few races left to go in this season. Road Atlanta, Bathurst and High Speed Ring, so he can look forward to a few of those. What can we say?
Yeah.
Oof. Bit of action in the opening few laps there.
Yeah. As we see Charlie in that 4GT looking for a move on Nigel here. It looks like he's about to get it done, and he's in front of him now going into this braking zone for this very wide hairpin here. And obviously Charlie having a great race so far, and maybe I know the other tracks that we went to previously haven't really been to Charlie's liking, but he seems to be doing quite well, so maybe we found one that he does like. Thank God, finally. But yeah, obviously going back to the incident, I always say, don't let an incident kind of dictate your race. Don't give up. Try and get to the end, because we've seen previous examples. Just saying, coach a few weeks ago, he had quite a big incident on turn one, and he ended up winning the race. So it just really goes to show that anything can happen. You may get into an incident in the first couple of laps, but it can really, swing back into your favour in the latter stages of the race. So I think that's a great example to go by. Don't give up after an incident. Keep going, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, quite right. But what can you say? At the end of the day, we've still got another 30 odd laps of this race left. You can see the two Ferraris fighting for it in the end of the first sector. I would wonder if Sophie might just be choosing to sit behind Mac a little bit and save a little bit of fuel and get dragged along in Mac's slipstream, because Mac does look quite handy around here today, considering he didn't do that much in the way of practice, so we're told. But they have got Dark Lord for company as well.
Yeah, and Sophie unfortunately hitting the walls, very similar to Mercedes. I don't think she picked up damage for that, luckily. But yeah, obviously trying to keep in the slipstream of McManley. But like you say, Dark Lord not too far behind in the slipstream of Sophie as well. So I'm sure the Dark Lord will try and capitalise on any sort of mistake or any gap that he sees to try and make a move on the two Ferraris ahead. But it looked like just behind we have Midnight having a little bit of a fight, or a little bit of a battle with Giles here. Giles trying to block off that inside line and say, Midnight, nope, you're not past me right now. And obviously Midnight will have to try another corner, another lap potentially, as this battle seems to have been brewing for a couple of laps now. We'll keep an eye on this battle as we see Midnight just tucking up behind Giles. Giles breaking very very early for that corner, which may have caught Midnight out a little bit there, as it does drop him back a little bit. But like I say, we'll join that battle just in a second as we go on to lap number 8. The Ferrari is still looking quite strong, and just having a look, it seems like Mercedes, obviously, I think he came in for a pit stop, I'm not quite sure.
He did.
He's gone on to the medium tyres now, quite early for that change, but obviously that does release Fodder quite far in the lead now to the two Ferraris, so I'm sure he'll be enjoying that quite a bit. And obviously his next kind of competitor on the road is McManley in that P2, and obviously, but he's still engaged in this battle of the Ferraris, as I like to call it. So I'm sure, Fodder being able to breathe a little bit here and not obviously worry too much about the pressure from behind just yet, as we have Dark Lord and Katie the Kai having a little bit of a battle here, going in the tunnel. Katie the Kai on the left hand side, Dark Lord on the right. Obviously that does help Katie the Kai. He's got the inside line here if he sticks to this line for the very harsh braking zone up in front, as we see they're both trying to go side by side through here, but Katie the Kai being able to get in front of Dark Lord here.
Yeah, Kai getting the move done, completed, signed, sealed and stamped. We do see some more battling going on a little bit further down the field. That RX Vision looking very difficult to pass there. That the high speed of it. Woo.
Yeah, and I'm sure Midnight will be able to hear that car probably for the rest of the race. It's so loud, and when the RX Vision is right next to you with that engine noise. But yeah, Midnight being able to make the move on Giles here. Giles picking up a half-second penalty though, so obviously that will see him drop quite a bit back from Midnight. Like you said earlier, it does kind of lose you about a second, so Midnight trying to capitalise on that and try and get as far along down the road as he can. Obviously Midnight having a little bit of a challenging qualifying session, started in P12. He's made up quite a few positions so far, but obviously he's got a lot of the race left to go to make up quite a few more. As we join the front of the pack again, we have Dark Lord coming into the pits, changing onto the soft tyres. I wasn't expecting that. Obviously doing 8 laps on the medium tyres, and he's decided that he wants to go on the soft set of tyres, do a stint of fast pace, and let's see what he can do, Midnight.
Yeah, he didn't take on any fuel as well. We do know our Dark Lord, our Louis, he knows exactly one gear, and that is go. So that is exactly what he's sticking to. So he is going to be rapid in the next few corners, particularly. Well, a few laps. I'll give him credit for that one. We have to keep an eye. I think that fastest lap is going to go pretty quickly, but it's put him down to 8th and behind the likes of Giles, who's going to have to make a few passes to get through into the top 5 at very least. But this gaggle of cars in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, Mac, Sophie, and Kai, all in different stages of tyre wear and fuel preservation. I've got to say, Mac, despite being the leader in this group, doing pretty well, particularly with the fuel preservation and gifting Sophie the slipstream. So Mac looking very strong here today. You can see Sophie getting a little bit loose with the rear end. That 458 starting to lose its bite on those rear tyres on lap 9. And Kai, the GTR, looking like his rear tyres are much fresher, but the front tyres starting to wear a little bit thin. So you win some, you lose some when it comes to tyre wear around here with some of the cars, Sarah.
Yeah, that's very accurate there. Obviously the 458s are known for their very kind of high tyre wear, especially around tracks like this. So it'll be interesting to see how Sophie and Mac get on with the tyre wear. As I always go back to saying, it's so at the moment we're still getting used to seeing Mac in that Ferrari. He normally picks the Mercedes when he's doing races like this. So obviously it's another kind of exploration race for Mac there, trying to learn the tyre wear rates and, you know, the drivability of this Ferrari 458, and he seems to be doing a really good job so far. I don't know if you agree about that, Midnight, and he seems to have kind of really capitalised on, you know, learning quite fast how to drive this 458, and he's doing, like I say, an amazing job. But the tyre wear, it burns through so fast on that Ferrari. So obviously that he'll have to factor that in, as we see Katie the car potentially go for a move on the fellow 458 driver of Sophie just behind. But Sophie being able to keep her foot on the accelerator there, not letting Katie the car through and going around the outside again. Although it did look like she bonked the wall just a tiny bit there, that doesn't lose her any sort of momentum. But nearly having a full slide round that corner there. It's very interesting to see. And I think we've called it out before. You know when the Ferrari drivers are pushing it because they're always sliding around the corners.
Yeah, they certainly are. And the Ferrari drivers do tend to like a little bit of oversteer. It's exactly what they get in those cars as well. So, you know, kudos to them as well. But Kai looking like he's learning from Master Roshi himself and doing his best to perform some of these taught techniques of getting past the Ferrari. I'm not sure how Dragon Ball directly correlates to Group 3 driving, but it seems to work for Kai. So all I can say is Kaio can, which will leave you completely floundering and lost for words on that one. But anywho, we're moving back. We've got the Dark Lord in P8. Looks like he's going to make a move for P7. So I'm not going to use some Star Wars quotes in this one because that would be too much. But he does look like he's feeling it, and he wants both the next place. He has set the fastest lap on the previous lap with a 1:49.999. So someone called emergency services for Giles because the Dark Lord is through.
Yeah, and maybe potentially, like you say, obviously Giles knowing that his battle isn't with the Dark Lord right now, but or maybe, you know, he could hear the Imperial March music from a mile away and thought, I want to let him through as quick as I can because I don't want to be intimidated. But yeah, obviously Dark Lord back on the charge for the fastest lap here, and he's quite comfortably got it at the moment. He's still got quite a few laps left of that soft tyre, but just bringing your attention back to the battle for P2, we've still got a very as I say that, Sophie nearly facing the wrong way and into the wall, but she keeps hold of it. Like I say, the two Ferraris and Cade and Kai are very close to each other, and obviously I think this is the battle to watch at the moment, as having a quick scan through the grid, everyone's getting to that point in the race where they're kind of getting ready for their first or second pit stops and kind of not spaced out, but all quite close to each other still, but kind of relaxing into the race and really getting into the groove of it. As I see Nigel getting quite close to Pedro here, so the Pedro on the hard tyres, that will give him a little bit, obviously, not a lot of speed on those tyres compared to Nigel, who's on the slightly faster set of tyres on the mediums. Obviously, he'll have a little bit more grip than Pedro, and it always goes back to that thing in the game where the hard tyres, because we don't really know too much about them, the sort of tyres, again, like Marmite, you either love them or you really hate them. And I'm not quite sure because I don't think I've used it in the M6. I don't know how the hard tyres react to a track like this with that car, but obviously hoping Pedro can get a few tips for me next race in case I need to use those hard tyres. But yeah, unfortunately that does lose him a little bit of pace to Nigel, as Nigel is right on the bumper of Pedro now, going on to lap 12. Will Nigel go for a move here? He thinks better of it. He stays behind Pedro here for the first couple of corners, but we all know how fast that 458 is, so we'll have to look back when they're going on that start, well, not the start-finish straight, the straight with the tunnel, as I think Nigel can really capitalise on the speed of that Ferrari there. Talking about Ferraris, yet again Midnight. It seems to be this battle is never ending between McManley, Sophie and Kaylee Mackay. They it's kind of like I forgot what the toy is called, but you know, the spiral toy where you drag it out, it gets longer, and then you let it go and it kind of all calls up back together. And let's just say that Kaylee Mackay coming into the pits, that completely ruins my analogy of the springy toy, which I've completely forgot the name of. Someone will have to remind me in the comments what it's called. So
you've got me on that one.
But yeah, obviously now that releases McManley and Sophie to have a little bit of battle between themselves as Kaylee Mackay comes into the pits, and well, hopefully, you know, he'll be hoping for the undercut here to try and capitalise on, you know, the battle of the Ferraris holding each other up, and let's see where Kaylee Mackay can come out as he leaves the pits. But we join the Dark Lord, who's just behind Midnight here, and he's closing in. Will we potentially see the Dark Lord going for a move before the tunnel? He dives into the inside line. Midnight staying to the outside line in the tunnel here. It goes round to the left. Dark Lord using all of the road up, coming across Midnight, and Midnight back on the outside here again. Dark Lord on the inside, nearly forcing Midnight out into the wall, but Dark Lord into P5 now. Midnight into P6. Midnight here could obviously tuck it up in between the Dark Lord in the tunnel, saving a bit of fuel, getting in the slipstream, and potentially could be on a move for a late braking manoeuvre come the end of the hairpin.
Well, Sarah, look at that. Dark Lord's tyres have really gone off. They're only about 5 laps old, and they're already, well, they're basically dead already. So he's gone from being on the attack to the defence in the space of a few corners. So he's going to have to nurse that car basically back into the pit lane at this point.
Yeah, and it shows how much he's been pushing on those tyres. But like you say, obviously the longevity of those tyres isn't a long time. As you say, only 5 laps on the softs for the Supra. Obviously, I think Midnight and everyone around him will bear that in mind. Obviously, like you say, Dark Lord will have to come into the pits relatively soon if he wants any sort of grips on those tyres. As he dives to the left-hand side, into the pits he goes, which releases Midnight again. But I'm sure Midnight will... he was able to kind of get in the slipstream of Dark Lord for a little bit there. So maybe, you know, 0.1 or 0.2 of a litre save there for Midnight. We shall see when he comes into the pits. But Sophie coming into the pits, which that breaks the battle of the Ferrari up. All the Ferrari fans in the comments will be crying now because the two Ferraris have been split up, but Mac still in P2. Fodder still in P1. I'm sure he's been enjoying this lead. He's been in the lead since lap 1. He's got 14 laps under his belt of being the race leader, and doing a pretty good job of it so far, Midnight.
Yeah, we haven't seen Fodder at all because quite frankly we haven't had to. He's been completely on his own the entire time. Mercedes making his way back past Giles potentially after his pit stop. Giles having a great race actually, considering he is yet to stop and fighting side by side with Mercedes. Good racing from these two, you have to say. But you can definitely see the Mercedes has got a very similar tyre wear despite having stopped and Giles not. So you have to say Mercedes very, very fast, but Giles doing much better on the tyre wear. What do you think of that move, though, Sarah?
Yeah, it was very brave, and obviously Giles not wanting to give up that P5 position just yet. But yeah, interesting what you say about the tyres there. Obviously, been able to kind of save those tyres just a little bit, Mercedes, as we see Giles going slightly wider for Mercedes. May potentially be looking for a move here again, but I think he's going to tuck in behind Giles, which he does going into this corner here. Oh, they get very close. A little tap from Mercedes to Giles there, which brings them back side by side into the final few corners here. But obviously, I think the RX version of Giles will be needing fuel in the next couple of laps, so he'll have to go one more lap, as Mercedes was on the inside line and may have potentially shut the pit lane to Giles there. He should have enough fuel to get him around this lap, but yeah, by the end of that lap, he may have to do a little bit of lifting and coasting there midnight.
Quite potentially indeed. Fodder in the pits as well, getting off those medium tyres. So he managed 14 laps on those medium tyres. That's a good amount, and that's the furthest we've seen anyone go so far. But Manley following him as well. So the top two in the pits. That question for me is, where is Sophie going to factor in as to where Fodder and Mac are leaving the pits? Mac not taking a full tank. So where is Sophie on this one? Kai as well, because these three were all together. Mac coming out the pits. Kai directly behind.
Cool.
And Pedro's there as well. So he's obviously recovering. And Sophie quite far back actually, but considering she had taken on probably more fuel and gone to the hard tyres, that is something I didn't expect actually. That would explain why Sophie wasn't on the fastest pace there at that point in time. And we've got Dartlord also on hard tyres, actually in 11th, our championship leader, currently at the back of the grid.
Yeah, obviously potentially that could be because of the soft set of tyres that he took on his previous stint. Obviously, I'm sure he'll be trying to use this stint now to try and get back into the swing of things. As we see Charlie being promoted to the lead, and I'm sure in his head while driving around he'll be shouting, "I'm in the lead!" As he comes into the pits now with Midnight in P2 also diving into the pits now. So the pits are getting quite popular in this lap. But that will promote Mercedes into the lead here, with Giles also coming into the pit. But obviously the net leader is still currently Fodder, as he's driving around on a fresh set of rubber with quite a lot of fuel on board. So picking the right time to pit there Midnight was Fodder.
I couldn't agree more. I think he's coming in his own time. He's running his strategy to what he needs to do. Charlie now pitting with only 2% fuel. He ran that close. But yeah, all drivers have now made at least one stop. So we are now going to see the true running order of the race. Mercedes does tend to go for an extra pit stop over a lot of drivers. But that said, he does offset that with blinding speed. Very much in the similar ethos what our Dark Lord do. No wonder these guys are in the top three of the championship together. It just works for them. But Fodder, he has been moving up the championship ranks ever since he joined us a few races ago, and I think at the end of this race he's going to probably be in the top 10. He's been very impressive with a blue lobby victory and what might be a red lobby victory. Not many have done that this season.
No, we shall see. Obviously we're on lap 16 now, so quite a few laps to go before Fodder can hold that trophy up. But he's on for a good, if we could, obviously he's in P2 at the minute, which is the net lead. Mercedes obviously will have to come into the pits soon-ish, but yeah, obviously I'm sure Fodder will be very happy that he's in a good position at the moment after that second stint, because it was obviously behind him was quite a few battles going on, so it's kind of that unknown territory where everyone was going to end up in their second or third stints, as a few drivers are on now. But yeah, obviously Mac coming out a lot closer to Fodder this time though. Obviously the first stint we saw Fodder kind of miles away in the lead, but McManley here, showing that he's still there, he wants to win as well, and he's not too far behind Fodder. Yeah,
taking that short fill has really brought him into play actually. As long as Mac can manage that fuel, he might be able to offset that Ferrari fuel burn and stay with Fodder. So this race isn't over by a very, very long stretch. We do see Mercedes coming in for his second stop. So he's definitely out of sync with all the other drivers, which can be a real benefit. Gives you clear tarmac at a lot of different points, but we have to see how that works out for him. But yeah, Mac, don't discount him for the win yet. But one thing I will point out is Dart Lord in P9 on those hard tyres. Doesn't look like he's going anywhere fast. Those hard tyres in the Super around Tri Mountain. As you can see, he's struggling with that car. He's rapid, one of the fastest drivers we've ever seen, but it's not working for him today.
Just goes to show, obviously, you know, picking the wrong tyre at the wrong time, it can really kind of hinder your race, but it could also be very car specific. As I said earlier, the hard tyres are kind of, you love them or you hate them, and on some cars they just feel undrivable. So obviously maybe Dark Lord here trying to get used to the hard tyres quite quickly. And just looking just above him, I saw Mercedes coming out of the pits there just in front of Midnight in P7, so he'll be looking to try and catch up to the likes of Sophie, Nigel and Pedro. Pedro obviously back into P4, having, like you say, a good recovery, although that hard tyre on the front right does look like it's seen slightly better days. So obviously he'll be having to think about that and try and look after that for as much as he can. But Battle of the Ferrari has resumed, but this time with Nigel Mansell as the contender here in P5. Obviously Mac just further down the road in P2. But yeah, it seems to be Battle of the Ferraris today, Midnight.
It does. That 458 coming very good in this season. It's not a car that either of us particularly get on with, but it is, as you said, with regards to the Supra and Dark Lord earlier on, it can be car or driver specific. And these drivers loving the Ferrari, and it's great to watch it dance around the track, I have to say. I have a lot of respect for people that can command the Ferrari, the 458, like these drivers do. But they are very much zeroing in on Pedro in P4, on those aging hard tyres and that M6. So he's going to have to be careful. He's going to have a face full of maroon and orange Ferrari rapidly closing him down.
Yeah, and obviously it's good to see kind of Mansell back in contention. Obviously he had quite an incident in the finals, the first stint, sorry, of his race, and getting to the grips of that Ferrari around this track. It's not easy to do, but it's good to see him having a little bit of a battle with Sophie here currently. And obviously Sophie, like you said earlier, maybe just tucking in behind Mansell here, saving a bit of fuel, saving a bit of tyres for this. Oh, as it looked like Nigel had a big whack to the wall there. I'm not sure, he may have got with that unscathed, which he does, but that did look like it nearly threw him off into the wall, into the tunnel, and that does lose him a bit of momentum to Sophie here. Sophie giving him a little bit of a bump drafting him down the straight. And obviously still in P5 is Nigel and P6 is Sophie. A little bit of Ferrari teamwork there. As we see Katie the Kai having a bit of an incident, Nigel Mansell going through with Sophie as well. And Mansell picking up a 3-second penalty.
Oh, that's
maybe
not fair.
Potentially
that's unlucky
that's
for
not
Nigel.
Fair.
That is very unlucky. But
I think the game, unfortunately, the GT7 guys were just not on his side there, throwing a yellow flag, and obviously maybe the stewards on the track making the wrong decision there for Nigel. Like, very unfortunate to see, as it looked like it was the battle of the Ferraris was going to resume, but that will drop him quite far back, and that may even drop him back behind Katie the Kai here.
Yeah.
As he finishes that penalty. Yeah, very, very unlucky.
Yeah, you can only presume, just as Kai was getting back up to speed, that Nigel unfortunately went through a yellow flag zone and picked up a 3-second penalty for... What can we say? It's not fair. It's a 3-second penalty for what is allegedly an unsafe pass in a area with a slow-moving car. But what can be done? I mean, he couldn't have really got out of the throttle at that point, and by the time he'd have seen him, that is just raw bad luck. But that said, we still have a long way to go in this race. We're just over halfway, and Nigel, he's lost 3 seconds or so, but at least he's still running in P6, and Kai is carrying damage from that spin and on the hard tyre, so Kai is going to be a target for Nigel to get another space back up. And we do urge people to go check out Nigel Mansdale's YouTube channel, because you will see a race in VR from his perspective. With that in mind, Sarah, Fodder, cool and calm out the front, followed by Mac, but you have to say, maybe he's keeping them at the right distance, because Mac not really making too much of an inroad to him. Pedro running in P3 at the moment, but he's going to have to pit this lap or next lap and then go to the end, probably on another set of hard tyres. But the consistency he's got there is remarkable. A 153 every single lap for at least the last 10 laps. So great to see from him. Kai diving in the pits. He's decided that damage is too much, with the chasing pack of Nigel and Mercedes directly behind him. That's going to put Kai really out of sync. And another thing to note, so Dark Lord is still not making his way past that McLaren. He's even got Charlie for company now.
Yeah, obviously not what we normally see from Dark Lord here, so it could be, track specific that Supra and Dark Lord not really, finding this track the best for the setup of their car. And like you said, the hard tyres maybe just not playing in his favour right now, although it does look like it's doing okay for Pedro. So like I say, it could be very car specific. Obviously the Supra not a huge fan of those hard tyres, I presume, as we see Sophie in the 458 getting very close to Pedro now. Pedro obviously having to probably maybe fuel save a little bit here, as that light is flickering. And we've got Sophie in that very fast Ferrari 458 looking to try and get up onto the back of Pedro here. But yeah, obviously Pedro trying to get that BMW just around another lap, so he can pit at the end of this one, I presume.
I would agree with you. Yeah, he's going to be coasting that car back in. He's not going to hold Sophie up, I would imagine, because he's more than likely going to dive into the pits on this lap. But he's got himself into a window. He can get that car to the end. Because I think he pitted on lap 4 after that incident with Koulios. And he's just done, I think, 16, 17 laps. He's going to have to do the same, and yet you can see him indicating, there he goes. So he's made his intentions very clear, and off into the pits he goes. Sophie being a bit cheeky, trying to get a bit of a slipstream, but we can definitely see, looks like Sophie at the moment looking good, looking very solid for a potential P3 or P4, but we have to see what Mercedes in that Porsche 911, that's a weird sentence, is going to do. But we do also have Nigel who's sticking with him, or who will be in shortly. He has already run the soft tyre, so he's either going to have to go hard tyres or mediums to the end as well, presuming a 2-stop race. But just a little bit further at the back, Kai recovering after that pit stop. That's an interesting one, Sarah. He's gone to soft tyres, getting past Giles in that one. Kai on soft tyres.
Yeah, interesting call there. Obviously just thinking that we've got around 16 laps to go. That's definitely going to mean that, Katie the car will have to come into the pits yet again for another tyre change. Maybe trying to make some inroads after that mistake, potentially. But after a mistake like that, obviously normally a driver would either go to mediums or hards, obviously try and increase the longevity of the tyres and the car. But yeah, picking the soft set of tyres and trying to make them work for him here. But obviously we'll see how much time he can make up on those soft set of tyres. Maybe going for the fastest lap, potentially trying to pick up some points that he may have lost with that collision. But we shall see. But very interesting call there.
Yeah, I can only agree with you. I suspect he's going counter strategy now, just going flat out with the idea of stealing 2 points away from Dark Lord and 2 points back to himself. That'd be a 4-point swing and somewhat neutralise the difference in the championship. Kai sitting in the top 5 going into this race, our last season champion, and he won last season because he was very, very clever and tactical. So Kai, either a big brain 3000 moment there, or he just wanted to go fast. You don't really ever know because we're not talking to the drivers live. Be pretty cool if we could, though.
Yeah, and obviously, like you say, potentially big brain. and or just wanting to be fast, or a bit of both, which obviously does help. And obviously wish him well in the final stint of the race as well. But talking about champions, one of our champions of, well, our championship leader, shall I say, in the Dark Lord, currently still on those hard tyres, still behind Midnight here. So like you said earlier, not being able to really make any inroads just yet, but really trying to make the Supra last for as long as he can around here, which may help him in that final stint. Obviously, if he can carry on, get on another set of soft tyres and really kind of challenge Midnight and the people in front of him, then you never know, you may see it swing, or he may put the ball back in his court, and may obviously do him a favour later on in the race. But just behind we have Charlie running in P7, doing a pretty good race so far, keeping out of trouble, just trying to get used to the track, the car. Obviously we know his style of racing, he's not 100% confident in this 4GT, it doesn't quite suit his driving styles from what we've heard, so he's doing a pretty good job so far.
Getting mighty close to the wall though, sir, so he's confident enough to push the limits, but you have to say, someone who's not pushing the limits, I'm going to have to bring it back to this fodder. Haven't seen much of him, haven't seen him put a wheel wrong the entire feature, and from what I can understand from the sprint, he's obviously unhappy with the result he's got there. And maybe driving angry, but for some people driving angry is super smooth, super fast, and just laser focused. And he seems to be laser guided on around this one, because he's holding off Mac, who is a previous multiple winner, podium sitter, and top 3 finisher across the series. So that's a pretty... he's doing pretty damn well, fodder, to hold off Mac the way he is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And obviously Mac may potentially trying to, look after his tyres, isn't really looking to overtake fodder right now. Obviously I think we'll see that battle emerging between the two slightly later towards the end of the race. But both, thinking very smart, both not pushing it, to the max, holding a little bit back if they need to. Talking about not holding back, Mercedes trying to go for a move on the inside of Sophie here, through the tunnel before that late braking zone. Just going side by side right now, but obviously it may see Mercedes try and hold that inside line into the braking zone, which she does. Sophie on the outside, not giving up just yet, still on the throttle, looking like she's going to have to concede that P3 position to Mercedes, but obviously still very close. She can potentially fight back and try and get back into that P3 position in the next couple of corners on next lap. We're going back to Fodder and McManley. Yeah, like I say, not kind of pushing to their max right now, Midnight, kind of holding a little bit back for maybe later on in the race, which I think is the right call round here.
Quite right. At the end of the day, they're 23 laps into a 37 lap race. They don't need to push themselves incredibly hard. One thing they need to do is just get some consistency going. You can see Mac's times and Fodder's lap times are exceptional today, and they're just walking away from the back behind.
Talking about pace, Caden Kai setting the fastest lap of a 1:49.411, so cutting a little bit into the Dark Lord's fastest lap time. Not by much, but by enough, obviously, to pick up that fastest lap at the moment. So potentially, like you said earlier, trying to pick up as many points as he can, knowing that he's going to finish slightly behind the Dark Lord and his kind of nearest competitors in the championship. So very smart racing from KD Lukai there, especially after obviously that mistake that he made, or collision. I'm not quite sure, we didn't quite pick it up, but having a quick cycle through everybody. Nigel in P11, getting into the groove of it again, and Pedro as well, obviously after that recent pit stop, into P10, but he's on for a good obviously chance if he can bring this car to the end, where everyone else may potentially have to pit again. If he can keep the BMW on track, he might be able to climb a few positions again, obviously on the hard tyres yet again, with near enough a full tank of fuel. Obviously he did pit quite a few laps to go now, but yeah, obviously fingers crossed for Pedro that he can have a little bit of a better end of the race, as Giles in P9, Katie the Kai currently in P8, still on those soft set of tyres, so we shall see how he gets on. But Charlie seems to be closing in on the Dark Lord Midnight. But again, obviously Dark Lord's still struggling on those hard set of tyres, but Charlie looking to capitalise on that.
Yeah, I have to say, like you said, Katie Kai in the background sneaking into the pits. Charlie sneaking into the wall. That was unfortunate timing. I was about to say, Charlie not particularly happy with some of the Group 3 drivability, and fortunately catching him out there. That was poor timing, but he was definitely making inroads onto Dark Lord, and someone who we know is an easy top 3 fastest on the grid. So it's a good performance from Charlie, despite the mistake in that last couple of corners. So he's doing himself proud for certain. But I have to say, Sarah, looks like we're getting to that point in the race where it's all settling down. A lot of drivers are thinking, right, we need to get end of this fuel tank, end of these tyres, and then we're on for a sprint to the end. A lot of drivers still not used either the soft or the hard tyres. All drivers do have to use 2 different compounds of tyres. We're not expecting any rain here, so that will be some soft, slick tyres. I have to keep an eye on that fastest lap from Kai, because that might fall again. But Kai still in the pits, coming out. Medium tyres, that should be going to the end, surely. 12 laps, although we did see on his first stint, I think he did 13 laps, and it was quite near the end of those tyres. So, but he should get those tyres to the end, so we'll see what Kai can do. He's on a basically push to the end now, I'd imagine.
Obviously, trying to get that fastest lap in that kind of midpoint in the race, so that he could go back on the mediums and have maybe a more kind of chill final stint. As obviously on the mediums, he can probably bring it to the end. He may be very close at the end, and he may be driving on the rims, shall we say? But we shall see. But who's not on the rims at the moment is Fodder, still in the lead, having a very commanding lead. Like I say, obviously, maybe driving angrily, or maybe trying to make up for obviously the sprint race, trying to capitalise and pick up as many points as possible. And it's been a great addition to the grid, obviously setting some really, really astonishing lap times in qualifying as well, and that's just going to show that it's really helped him out this race. Starting on pole has given him a huge advantage, and he seems to be capitalising on that pretty well. Obviously sporting a new livery this week as well. We normally see him in that kind of black and gold 911. Today he's gone for a special livery, looking very, very cool. As we go on board with Midnight here, going through the tunnel. Currently he is in P5, so doing quite well so far. And unfortunately, obviously Dark Lord, he's kind of not been able to cut into Midnight's time just yet. Seems to be a couple, I'll probably say 3 or 4 seconds between, well actually no, not saying that, probably 2 or 3 seconds between the drivers here, and these two are used to battling each other, so and like I always say, Midnight, he's aware when Dark Lord is behind him, so I'm sure that'll be on Midnight's mind right here, that he's got the very fast Dark Lord in that super behind him. But let's see how long he can hold Dark Lord behind him, Midnight. But obviously cycling back through Midnight, McManley, 2 M's, getting obviously in that P2 position, as seems to be his position for the day. Midnight obviously P2 in the sprint, potentially on for a P2 or win in the future race, so he's doing a remarkable job so far.
Yeah, Mac definitely having a very good race weekend, as it were, and Fodder obviously taking charge of the race at the moment. Both drivers looking probably towards their final stop in the next lap or 2. But yeah, you have to say it's been a good, tight, clean race so far. Charlie does look like, unfortunately, he's picked up another half-second penalty, but he's sort of sticking with the same kind of lap times Dark Lord is doing. There's a lot of positives to be taken out of this race from a lot of drivers. Now Mercedes has got past Sophie. I think Sophie's going to start coming back at him a little bit if it weren't for the fuel. But yeah, Sophie's now got the better tyres with the deg on those mediums. But it's, yeah, we have to wait and see what happens with all these drivers. Oh!
Midnight colliding with the wall and the stones there, which does send him facing the wrong way for a split second there, but gets going again, but does unfortunately pick up a little bit of damage. And Charlie obviously looking to make that move done on Midnight there as he's getting back up to racing speed. Yeah, very unfortunate for Midnight there. Looked like he just clipped the wall. Any further in he would have been fine, but yeah, unfortunately that does lose him 2 positions and potentially obviously having to come into the pits, lose a little bit of time repairing that damage. So very unfortunate for Midnight there, who looked like he was on for a decent result in that P5 position in front of Dark Lord, who's struggling on those hard set tyres. But you win some, you lose some. Unfortunately, Midnight losing a few positions there because of that incident with the rocks. And I'm sure he'll be writing a letter to Trial Mountain and say remove those rocks from that corner there. But it looks like it has caught a few drivers out, including Midnight. But going back to the rest of the grid, we have Sophie in the pits, Midnight in the pits as well, looking to repair that damage as quick as he can, and potentially go on for a fresh set of tyres to the end.
Yeah,
but
Sarah, it's at that point though you're going to have to look at the tyres with only 10 laps remaining. The soft tyres around here, they kind of do 9 laps at most drivers at absolute most. So it's going to be tricky getting a set of softs or the hard, it's a very worn set of softs to the end or hard tyres to the end. We have to wait and see what happens. Sophie's got, I'd imagine, going to medium tyres to the end, which is she's just ran hard in the middle stint. But we're at that point where people are going to be thinking, what tyre do I go to?
I think you called the right tyre there. I think medium tyres kind of being the tyre to choose for this final stint, because like you say, to finish the race comfortably, as I say that, Midnight completely going against what I said, picking up the soft set tyres. So I was going to say, obviously I think the mediums are the way to go to finish the race comfortably, but Midnight, doing his normal of the alternative and unique strategies, goes on the soft set of tyres with 9 laps to go. Let's see if he can hold them till the end. But that brings him out just in front of Katie the Kai there. Obviously Katie the Kai having got the pace advantage slightly, as Midnight is obviously trying to get back up to racing speed here after pitting. So this will be an interesting battle to bring us to the end, as we see Mercedes also coming into the pits now. But yeah, picking the soft seed Midnight, but everyone else on Sophie on the mediums after that pit stop. But might see her have a little bit more grip to the end compared to Midnight there.
Well, I can tell you right now that incident into the tunnel was forcing the pit strategy to switch between the mediums and the softs 2 laps too early. So this is going to be a stretch to get those soft tyres to the end. But it's at that point you either go hard tyres and accept that you're going to be slow to the end, or risk it on softs. You just have to wait and see if it works out, Sarah.
Yeah, we will do indeed. Has Midnight risked it for a biscuit, or has he gone on to the wrong tyre? We shall see.
Speaking of risking it, have you seen Mac's tyres recently?
Yeah, and fuel. Really pushing that Ferrari to its limits there as Mac. Not wanting to lose too much time to fodder there, as obviously fodder with the fuel light flickering as well. That may play into Mac's hands a little bit, as obviously they both will need to come into the pits in the next couple of laps. See, maybe this lap, judging by their fuel, especially Fodder's fuel, as well as Dark Lord. So it could be top 3 having to pit, and obviously a little splash and dash till the end. We've got around about 8 laps to the end, so it's getting to that point, the crossover, like you say, Midnight. The softs, will they last, or will they, stick with the trusty medium tyres in that final stint? We shall see.
Well, I'd say for anyone other than Dark Lord, the soft tyres from here, if not next lap, should go to the end. But we have to wait and see what Dark Lord does. I suspect he's going to go to mediums. I'd expect Fodder and Mac haven't run the soft tyre yet, so those pair are going to have to probably go to the softs or the hards. And we've got Charlie, who's still going to, I think, go around for another lap. He's going to pick up the lead for potentially a lap, and then come in for his soft tyres and then be probably the fastest man on track towards the end.
I'm sure he'll be very happy about being promoted into the lead again.
Oh, not quite.
Saying that, he was
Oh, no, he did.
Close.
He did, just about.
Just about, but obviously with the fuel he will have to come into the pits in the next lap or so, but that will set him up nicely for that soft tyre. Obviously if he can go 7 laps on the soft tyre, it will see him comfortably finish on that tyre. But we shall see. But like I say, I'm sure he'll be very happy about getting a bit of clean air, and obviously Fodder just coming out of the pits just behind him, and I'm sure Fodder won't be worrying too much. Obviously he is set to go to the end. Dark Lord picking up, coming out of the pits in P7, so does lose quite a bit of time there, but goes on to the mediums and is looking to catch up with Sophie just in front.
Looks like he's on his ideal prime race tyre, as is Sophie, so those two are going to be battling towards the end. And you've got to say, the battle for P8 at the moment, Kai picking up a half-second penalty, dropping a bit of distance with those older medium tyres as well, but I have to say, Kai, he's going to get those mediums to the end, but I don't think he's going to lose that fastest lap or anything, unless any of the drivers like Fodder out front, who has been immense this week, can drop in a faster lap than Kai. We have to wait and see. Now, Fodder on the back is the only action we've seen from him all race, and he gets the free pass as Charlie goes into the pits.
Yeah, he's very comfortably been in the lead for the whole race, pretty much.
That said,
so you give or take a few pit stops.
Mac is close a distance to, I think, just about 2 seconds.
Yeah, this could be the stint where we see McManley close in on Fodder and potentially a last lap dash, as we like to call them. Obviously, maybe a photo finish as well between the two, which I don't know about you. It's got going to be pumped for the end of the race here to see obviously if Mac can trump obviously the very commanding lead of Fodder this race. He's been on a whole different level this race, and like I say, really commanding lead, not making too many mistakes either. But saying that, obviously Mercedes as well into P3, he's doing a mega job at being able to hold that podium, and it really does seem that this track has suited the Porsche 911 drivers this week.
Yeah, the Porsche drivers coming on very, very strong. You have to say the Ferrari drivers as well, with Nigel, Sophie and Mac. All three of those drivers having a good race. We do see Nigel currently in P9, but he is ahead of Pedro in P10, who has been remarkably consistent with his hard tyres since that opening stint incident with Koulios. But we have Giles now, who's hunting the pair of them down. So even for the final positions today, you got a complete question mark of who's going to finish where. Giles on the soft, Pedro on the aging hard, Nigel on the mediums in reverse position. So lots going on there. And even Charlie now, softs aiming at the back of Kai. So, well, where do we go? Out front, Fodder and Mac. Sounds like an interesting meal, that one, doesn't it? But we do have Fodder, who is now stretching his legs in that 911. Fastest lap, 49.371. He's just gone a tenth faster than Kai. And then we've just seen Mac set a little bit of a slow lap, actually, at 51.2. So he's dropped a couple of seconds somewhere. I think he's probably had an oversteery incident somewhere. He's got away with it though. But yeah, Mac dropping a couple of seconds there. Just behind P4 we can see Sophie, followed by the Dark Lord himself. As you know, one of my favourite quotes: would you rather have Genghis Khan behind you or the Dark Lord? Genghis Khan would be much easier to deal with. So watch out, Sophie, on this one. That Ferrari looking like it's going to be coming under fire very soon. On that, keeping on Kai. So it looks like he's in for some solid points. He's going to get that GTR to the end in 7th place, so long as he can keep the rapid Charlie in that 4GT behind him.
Yeah, he's obviously the 4GT one is behind you. It's very hard to keep it behind you because it's got a very kind of high top end speed, especially on this track. We've seen it's got a couple of straights where the 4GT does really come into its own. So obviously Keiji Kai will probably be aware of that, and obviously Charlie as well, being on the soft set of tyres, he's really wanting to capitalise on being on the soft set of tyres, especially at the end of the race, trying to see if he can make up a few positions. But Dark Lord getting a little bit closer to Sophie this time round after that very wide hairpin. I don't know the name of that corner, I'll probably have to learn it as I keep calling it the very wide hairpin, but it seems to be right. But Dark Lord obviously having a bit more of a difficult race compared to some of the races we've seen him drive this season. He's really having to work for this one, and obviously we're not over just yet, but Sophie making his job just that little bit harder.
Yeah, quite right. And in the battle for 6th, we have the margin Mclaren still holding off the Ultra Instinct Turtle School of Roshi. So interesting battles all the way around the track, and now we do see Charlie, who doesn't have any affiliation to any of the different arts, who's closing down Kai himself. So Charlie, the young pretender, learning his way around the Group 3s, closing in on the Season 3 champion. But
yeah, and obviously hopefully that will be a bit of a boost to his confidence as well.
Oh, Sophie wide. That got tucked back in front of Dark Lord. Looks like this battle is going to run to the end. We are now seeing higher tyre wear from Sophie. So there's something about these medium tyres that the Supra really enjoys, and the Ferrari is starting to struggle with. So I think we might be seeing a switch of position in the next lap or two there.
An old switcheroo, as we call it. Yeah, obviously, like you called it perfectly. I think the medium tyre is really suiting that Supra quite well, as we may see a potential move. Ono thinks better of it. I saw the Dark Lord peep his head up just a little bit, but then staying behind Sophie around that corner there. But yeah, like I said, obviously the soft set of tyres that Louis was on, the Dark Lord was on earlier, just seemed to kind of crunch through them. The hards obviously not so much, but he wasn't really able to kind of push on them. The mediums, he seems to be enjoying these so far, as potentially we may see him go for a bit of a move here into the inside line of the final 2 corners. He seems to have been setting himself up for the inside line, breaks a little bit earlier, and obviously forcing Sophie to break a little bit later, but both managing to get round in their positions, and Dark Lord have to wait another lap there midnight.
Yeah, but you can see how much racier the Dark Lord looks on these medium tyres. It looks like a completely different driver to what he was 5 or 6 laps ago. So this is the Dark Lord that we know. And
yeah, and obviously he popped his head out again, trying to force Sophie into a bit of a mistake. And forcing his head out was Charlie, trying to go on the inside line of Keiji Kai into that first corner. Although Keiji Kai not letting him through easily, he goes back on the throttle, and I don't know if you're able to catch that movement, no, but what a move Keiji Kai did there. He kept his foot on the throttle and said, no, not today, Charlie, not just yet, I'm not letting you past.
Yeah, you're not going to put any manners on the Season 3 champion. But Kai looks like he is suffering at this point. He's going to get to the end on those tyres, but he's going to have to fight every single corner with Charlie at this point, because Charlie's soft tyres, both grippier and much younger. So you can see, yeah, this fight's not over by a long stretch, particularly with that 4GT so fast down the straight. Lots of little battles all the way around, but Sophie has been passed by the Dark Lord down the back straight. Can you imagine that was out of the left-hander, and then that Supra top speed has just gotten the job done for our Dark Lord there. But you can definitely see Sophie not giving up the battle yet. This will be carrying on till the very end, I assure you. But Kai at the moment holding off Charlie. Who are you going to put money on for this one? Our Season 3 champion or Charlie with the fresh soft tyres? Experience.
It's going to be a close one for sure.
Speed. I mean, Kai has both, but at the end of the day, sometimes that doesn't mean anything in Gran Turismo. Wow.
Keiji Kai coming into the pits. That took an unexpected turn.
Yeah, I can only imagine he knows that's a fight that is not going to go his way. He's going to go for the fastest lap, isn't he?
Yeah, obviously, Fodder with the fastest lap currently of a 1:49.371, which is astronomically fast.
Ooh.
And it'll be very hard to beat that one.
Yeah, and there's a fight building as well. Pedro on the back of Nigel. You can see that the tyre life on the Ferrari looking like it's a little bit second-hand at this point. As you can see, Kai, yeah, he's just changed tyres at soft tyres to the end, clearly. But you can also see Giles coming at the pair of them. And where's Kai going to come out in relation to Giles? Just in front. So, do you know what? I don't know if that's the right decision from Kai. He's given himself an awful lot of work to do in the last couple of laps. He had a nailed-on 8th place. He's going to have to pass the fighting pair of Pedro and Nigel, although he is going to have soft tyres. Maybe that's not as hard as it looks.
Yeah, obviously making his job a lot harder today, because that fastest lap, it's going to be obviously difficult to beat, but fresh set of rubber, and maybe, you know, sitting in the slipstream of Pedro will help him out and help him get that fastest lap point back, a couple of points, sorry, back from Fodder. As we see the Dark Lord going, sorry, not the Dark Lord, Katie the Kai, sorry, going into the inside line here on Pedro, getting that move done and dusted, signed, sealed and delivered before that harsh braking zone of the hairpin, and braking a lot later, and manages to get quite close behind Nigel as well, so setting himself up for the next few corners, and like you say, to try and challenge for that fastest lap. And although, like you say, obviously if he can set the fastest lap, get back into that P8 position, he's obviously he knew what he was doing all along with that final pit stop. But like I say, making his job a little bit harder as we join Midnight and Charlie here. Charlie getting on the back of Midnight, looking for a potential move around the outside of Midnight here. We'll see if he can get it done. He doesn't get it done. Again, Midnight keeping his foot on the throttle, and that corner there, when going to the inside, it really does compromise your line a little bit. So Charlie obviously having to back out of that move currently, but that doesn't mean to say that, you know, he can try and challenge again through the straight through the tunnel. And I'm sure Midnight will be aware that Charlie wants to make that move done and dusted. But having a quick flick through the grid again. Obviously Pedro's still on the back of Nigel, but Katie the Kai does manage to get past Nigel in that last lap or so. So he's currently free of any cars in front and behind. So he's on for the fastest lap here, as we see Charlie going on to the outside line this time, breezing past Midnight in that 4GT, and it just goes to show how high that top end speed of that 4GT really is.
I can also tell you one thing. Do you remember that gamble for the soft tyres?
Yes. Did it not work?
It didn't work.
No. Oh, yeah. Will they even last the last lap for you? We shall see.
Yeah, that gamble has not paid off. And you have to say, with hindsight, Kai, who was fighting the pair of them here, I think he would have had another spot easy, but you can only say hindsight doesn't get you everywhere, does it? Sadly. But Giles now getting Pedro into that section as well. Giles making an attempt on Nigel for P9 as well. So this fight is going to go to the end. Nigel on aged medium tyres, Giles on fairly worn softs, but Pedro on very old hards as well.
Giles came out of nowhere there, really. I was looking through and it was like, oh, boom, like, you know, Giles going into that P10 position. I wasn't aware that he was gearing up for a move like that, so that caught me by surprise, and I'm sure that caught obviously Pedro and Nigel out a bit by surprise there, but obviously trying to capitalise on Nigel and Pedro having a little battle for the last couple of laps, and potentially Giles on for a move with Nigel here as we join them on the final lap. We shall see who comes out victorious in this little battle between Nigel and Mansnell. As we look further across, obviously this will be the last attempt that I was saying that Katie the Kai did secure the fastest lap, the last lap with 1:48.965, so cutting into Fodder's fastest lap time and picking up a currently a couple extra points for that midnight.
Yeah, and then Fodder coming around the final corner. We have barely seen him have to do anything this race other than just be blindingly fast. Fodder picking up his maiden red lobby win in what would be angry driving, but a absolutely dominant win in that one, holding off Mac for P2. But dead tyres yet again. Mac getting that Ferrari to bend to his will. Then we have Mercedes with the free swap strategy coming home in P3, if a bit sideways, for his Porsche team. And then we have the Dark Lord, who has recovered from that middle stint where he was on those hard tyres, to finish P4, followed by Sophie in P5, who power slides out the final corner. Dark Lord looks happy with himself there. And then see Sophie in P5, Charlie in P6, now clear of that McLaren in P7. And can you see why?
Unfortunately, Midnight almost driving around with a flat tyre on that front right, so crawling across the finish line is Midnight in P7.
Kai, despite pitting, look how close he is.
Yeah.
Nearly didn't work there. Nearly didn't work, but Kai...
That's the sort of situation that if the race was any longer, Kai would have caught Midnight up there, unfortunately. But lucky for Midnight, it wasn't. But Katie's Guy finishing in P8, Pedro coming across the line now in P9. Able to get past Giles and Mansell in that last lap, really capitalising on those two battling. As we see Giles on P10 and Mansell in P11.
And I am hearing, Sarah, I'm hearing there was an incident on the final lap as well with Giles, Pedro and Mansell, and we have two of the drivers there with really big damage. We'll have to go and check that out in a minute. But after that, Sarah, that was quite an interesting feature race there. What can we say? Fodder being brilliant in that race.
A really good race, and like I say, didn't really have to do too much. But sometimes we all want and need races like that where we can just kind of relax into it and just do what we do best, which is drive fast and keep everyone behind.
Yeah, simple as that. Simple as that. Sometimes you just need a clear bit of track and a desire to go fast, and that's exactly what Fodder did today. And Mac has done very similarly and done very well. But yeah, what can we say? All drivers having a pretty interesting race for that one, and I have to give a particular shout out. I have to say thank you to drivers like Sophie for all of the action across the event today. And well, what can we say? It's been an entertaining one. I think it sets us up nicely for Road Atlanta. I think we will see Mercedes closing in to take P2 in the championship, and then somewhat closing the gap to Dark Lord. He has a hefty, he has some points to burn, but that doesn't mean he has one championship yet with 3 races to go. Some will benefit that Supra and some will not. We have some very high deg tracks with like high speed ring and even Road Atlanta coming up. So it's going to be entertaining, see who can take advantage of the last few tracks in the championship. But ultimately, Sarah, I do think we have to talk about driver of the day. Now, this could be a bit of a tricky one.
Could be. I'm trying to think about who I'm wanting to pick, and a few names do pop out, and it's going to be really hard to kind of pick one or two. Obviously we have kind of Coach for the sprint race win, again very commanding lead and win there. Fodder again with the same situation but in the feature race, and we've got quite a few contenders, especially in the closing stage of that feature race. I've got 2 in mind, and I don't know if you agree or if you have some other opinions, but I feel like McManley for one, obviously double second place finish in the sprint and the feature, but also Fodder as well for the feature race. It was so good to see, you know, he was in the lead at the start, in the lead at the end, and having probably the race of his life in that race. Obviously Mercedes as well, having a quite good race, being able to get onto that final step of the podium. But for mine, I'm going to pick Fodder and McManley. How about you?
Do you know what? I'm going to broadly agree with you, I am, however, going to choose one above the other. I'm going to say Manley for me for the double podium, threatening the win, despite Fodder being immensely quick. You have to say Mac has managed his car beautifully this event. You have to say, particularly from starting towards the back in the sprint and getting through to P2 as well. But you have to give Coach huge props for the sprint win. Big haul of points there for him as well, which will, I believe, just about keep him in red lobby for next week if he chooses to do so. And yeah, we have to say it's been lots of good racing. I'm not going to sell Fodder short, because his race in the feature particularly was beautiful. No fault, no issues at all. But for me, I think Mac just about edges it, but I would be happy to apply it to the pair of them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, obviously we said there's been a lot of contenders, especially this week with Trial Mountain throwing up some challenge races for some, or a breeze for some others. So yeah, I think they thoroughly deserve it, and all the drivers doing an immense job again. And bringing that on to next week's race, well, round number 8, shall I say, Road Atlanta. That's another track that obviously you either love or you hate, and I'm sure some of the drivers will be eager to get some miles on that track. Also, some that might be their preferred track, and have been waiting for it all season long, I've heard. But yeah, obviously I think that's going to be another interesting race around Road Atlanta. But I don't know if you agree. Let's go see what the drivers had to say about this race, and yeah, see you back for Road Atlanta, which is going to be an awesome race.